Welcome to the American Business Podcast. I'm Kevin Deveji, your host. I'm welcoming you episode 163 in the American Business Podcast. The American Business Podcast is the voice of American business. Quote of the day, as you know, we have a great partnership with missionstatements.com, and here is the quote of the day. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. You must go beyond them. All right. Well, we have a great guest in the American Business Podcast today. I'm going to invite our guest to our stage and let's get the conversation started. Hello, Alex. Welcome to the American Business Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin.
Pleasure is all mine. Very nice meeting you. Thank you very much for being with us. How is your week going so far?
It's great, thank you. Yeah, it's going really well. Just winding down and thankfully really busy. A lot of good opportunities, and how's everything going? Yeah, how's your week going?
Oh, well, it was actually a pretty busy week for me. I had some business trips. Yeah, I experienced the travel in US. You know the difficulties in the airports.
Yeah.
So I experienced it firsthand. Anyways, I survived, so that was good. Overall, it was a productive week. So happy to reach Friday. I have to say, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Things are okay, so this is good. Where are you connecting out of?
I'm out of Toronto, Canada. Yeah,
that's great. Well, okay, sounds good. So, actually, I'm very curious about your business and your business model. This is something new for us to learn from today in the American Business Podcast. So, if that's okay, I'll get the conversation started. As a start, would you please introduce yourself and your organization to our listeners and to our viewers?
Of course. So my name is Alex Hennick. I started AD Hennick and Associates 17 years ago. So basically what our company does is we buy and sell large quantities of inventory. So that could be excess inventory, equipment, machinery. We're typically working with a lot of brand name manufacturers to purchase goods. We're working with distressed assets. So it could be bankruptcy trustees or third-party warehouses. So for us, we're always, purchasing in large volume, selling in large volume, to retailers, and figuring out solutions, finding solutions for problems, whether that be day-to-day problems for successful companies or, more troublesome problems or distressed asset problems.
This is very interesting. And can you tell us about your reach? Is it only for Canada or for North America? Maybe a little bit of insights.
Yeah, of course. So we're typically working in Canada, US, and Europe. So we are purchasing goods and selling goods, and between these different countries. Obviously, nowadays there are some additional challenges when you try to move goods, say into the US, for example, additional charges, or depending on the regulations. But so we're typically purchasing and selling. In those places.
So in terms of liquidation, and you mentioned some of the services that you offer and activity. So are there particular vertical or particular goods that you are specialized in that companies needs to get in touch with you?
For sure. For us, it's interesting because every day is kind of a new adventure. We're buying almost everything. We do kind of specialize in terms of we're getting a lot of sporting goods. Toys is a big category. Beauty products, so that could be skincare, fragrances. Electronics is another big category. But day to day, a lot of different things come across our desk, and depending on what it is, we have quite a bit of experience. Additional, when we are purchasing bankruptcies, sometimes we'll purchase the assets of a bankrupt company, and that comes with everything. So, whether it's 20,000 square feet or 250,000 square feet, we'll purchase everything in the entire building, from excess inventory to the racking, to the equipment and forklifts, to the office stuff. And, the mandate is to clear it, broom swept clean, and hand the keys back to the landlord. So in certain situations, we're basically purchasing and moving anything.
That's very interesting. Okay, so how about the selling part? How do you sell what you buy? What are the channels that you typically use?
For sure.
Curious.
So if it's say day-to-day inventory, so say it would be toys or clothing or skincare, we would sell it to retailers. So that could be discount retailers, that could be regular retailers, online retailers, potentially warehouse sales, a variety of avenues that way. Maybe if it's more industrial, so it could be equipment, machinery, we run
Mhm.
auctions. So we can run
Oh,
auctions to
auction.
the public where we're
Okay.
selling goods, to equipment and machinery and a variety of items that we could sell it on site, whether we sell it
On
directly from
site.
our warehouse
Okay.
or from a manufacturing facility that we purchase. The cost to move everything is typically not worth it. So we'll want to sell everything on site and have it all sold and picked up, from there. Additionally, if it were to say be a bankruptcy of a retail store, we would reopen the store, bring back the staff, and sell everything from the locations. Because we do that often where you want to maximize what the product's worth. So there are some times where we will sell direct, but most of the time we're purchasing it in volume and we're selling it in volume.
I see. Well, yeah, this is very interesting as a business model. You are the first guest that we have from liquidation industry. That's why I'm asking questions,
Yeah,
trying to learn, and hopefully
sure.
it's gonna also be helpful for our audience as well. So many years ago, I joined different business auctions myself, and I experienced it. I witnessed it. That was very interesting. So, but it was years ago, and it was, I must say, before COVID. So how are the business auctions running nowadays? Is it like, can it be online, or in your case it has to be like on
Yeah.
site? How is the setup in
No,
general?
so that's the beauty of it. When I started back in the day, there were auctioneers. You had to go on site. You had to be there to purchase the items. It was everyone standing, walking around, or standing by the item, and putting up your bidding thing, and blah, 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 and going back and forth. And
Yeah, I seen it. That was
you
quite
know,
very exciting. Yes, I
yeah,
noticed it.
it's an exciting environment, but
Going five, going twice.
exactly. But it doesn't make sense from a logistical standpoint. It doesn't make sense for anything because we do all of our auctions online. So we have a viewing
Online.
day. So the
Okay.
customer could come and look at it, can touch, can feel, can ask questions, and they can come and see the product. But for the auction day, when it's ending, everything's done online. So you're bidding online. You might even say, look, I'm looking for this item. There's 500 lots, and this item's going to end, it's lot 200. It's going to end at 11 a.m. So you could log on at 10:50 and bid versus sitting there all day at an auction. So it's convenient, right? Every
Hmm.
lot ends, say, a couple minutes apart or 1 minute apart. So from the comfort of your office, from the comfort of your home, wherever you are, from your phone, you could be easily bidding on the auctions, and then within maybe 4 or 5 business days, we allow people to send trucks to pick up the product directly, from the location of the auction.
Amazing, amazing. Wow, that's, we always learn something new. So today, for us, at least for me, I have to say, I learned something new. That's very interesting. Yes, you love to learn more. So I'll definitely follow up with you and learn more. Some couple of things came to my mind, but we can discuss after the podcast. So this is good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is great that we learn about your business and what you do. We'll also love to learn about you as a professional. Can you tell us about your career journey a little bit? How did you get started? How your career journey has unfolded over the years?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's so for me, it really started at a young age. I was probably 11 or 12 years old. Growing up in Toronto, Toronto Maple Leafs, are the most popular hockey, and growing up playing hockey, and I always saw the demand and saw how much people loved going to the games. And back then, you couldn't buy tickets online. You would have to go. There were, like, say, a record store that you would go and line up and purchase tickets for a concert or a game.
Mhm.
And when I think I was 11 or 12, I used to borrow my dad's credit card, and I would go with him and I would purchase playoff tickets. And then I would go down to the game and I would sell them for triple. And then I would pay my dad back. And I just love the concept of buying and selling. I'm like, if you buy something at a price that's worth more, and then over the years, it just I got more interested. I started buying products when I was 15, 16. When I was 18, I started a sports jersey business where I would import large quantities of jerseys from overseas and sell them all over North America. And while I was at school, I was, missing classes along the way, but I felt I was learning more because I was, doing customer service and shipping, and like I'll get the notes online later. But I just always love buying and selling. I just the concept of, so as I finished school, I took a business program. I came back. I got a great opportunity at a liquidation company. They wanted me to come work there. I was there for about a year and a half. I really loved the concept, but for me, I've just been always so entrepreneurial. And I said, you know what, I want to do my own thing. I just, I don't want to compete. Like I want, I'd be happy to work with them type of thing. I learned a lot, but I don't necessarily agree with the way they do things. And I really want to build my own relationships. And I started 17 years ago. I called it AD Hennick and Associates. I said, I'll have associates one day. And I started in my bedroom, and then I got a third-party warehouse, and then I moved into, a house where the basement was my warehouse, and just over the years, just really, it took a while. It really probably took, 5, 6, even 7 years to really establish myself in the industry and those relationships. But I was a lot younger and really get that repeat business because I was really only as good as my last deal type of thing. So, over time, we, continue, to grow and, grew in terms of bringing on a team and building, the right relationships. And then thankfully, we a few years later made it to, the list of Canada's fastest growing company, North America's fastest growing companies.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so it's been really an incredible journey. It's been so much fun, but so much of it is just I have a passion. I love what I do. I love building the relationships. I love wheeling and dealing. I'm excited for Monday type of thing, right? So it's something where there's just so much that needs to get done, and it's something that I'm so excited to do. So it makes it easy for me to want to do it. The same way it's fun, talking to you. I enjoy, like we're just hanging out, we're talking, so I think it's something where it's really, enjoyable, which has allowed me to learn. Like it hasn't always been great. It has, you make, things along the way, you learn from a lot of mistakes, but it's been a great journey from at 11 or 12 from starting to kind of buy and sell.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. What is the secret of your success?
It's a great question. So for me, I would say that my main, secret or what I would have it is I would say it's just like kindness. I truly believe is how you treat someone, they'll never forget. And it doesn't matter who that person is. It doesn't matter what that person does. It doesn't matter how any aspect of life is the way you treat people says so much about who you are, but that's how you genuinely build the relationships. And I think that that's the reason why people want to do business with me, because they on top of the fact that they believe that we might be able to execute or buy it or clear it out or pay the right amount, it's almost irrelevant of that. They like me, they want to do business with me. I genuinely care about them and, their families and everything, so I think it's something where we build those relationships, we treat people with kindness, and that goes with my team as well. Like I have a great team, and my right-hand man has been with me for 12 years. My warehouse manager has been with me for 13 years. My CFO and my other warehouse manager has been with me for, 10 or 11 years. So it speaks so much about the environment and the kindness and how we treat people, because good and bad things happen. But I think it's really crucial because I've seen it the other way, or I've seen, like it's something where, that saying is, that, Gary V in his, I saw him, he said something once, he was like, what's up with that saying? Like nice guys finish last, right? Like it's, are you kidding me? Like nice guys finish first. If you ask me, like if I didn't go about my day to day, like not only in my life with my family, but with business,
Yes.
like I think that's what separates, like I think that genuinely everyone's a human being.
That is true. I think the that saying is, the other profile. Those not nice professionals. They just came up with that saying just to legitimize how they run business. That's what I will say. Otherwise, it's hard to accept that.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he can say, I'm not good at it. He has to say something. He's like, okay. So everyone knows himself first, right? If you're nice or if you're not.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way to legitimize their position. I think that must be it. So yeah. So the good guys finish first.
I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That just makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, let's talk about your industry. So earlier we talked about your business and how the business model in general and how you run it. When you look at your industry, is this the liquidation industry? How would you like to define it? Can you tell us about your industry a little bit in general?
Yeah, of course. So a lot of people would classify it as liquidation, or excess inventory. So for us, we're problem solvers. We're a great solution, and we work closely with whether it be the brand or the bank or the trustee. But I think the most important thing is like in that relationship, like when we're working with big brand name manufacturers, our whole sell is not, oh, we're going to pay you the most today. It's like, we're going to protect your brand. Where do you not want your product sold? Because if you're some of the largest brands in the world, you can't have your product on the market at a lower price and interrupt your regular customer base or interrupt your perceived, retail price online, and you still have inventory you need to move and you need to recover money, and it's taking up warehouse space and capital and everything. So I think it's important for us, where we're constantly building relationships with successful brands to help them get rid of, if they have, say, a canceled order, a repackaging change. We buy a lot of sunscreen. Maybe it's close dated. Maybe we buy 150,000 bottles of sunscreen in April, and we sell it to a discount retailer, and the best before date is November. But in this case, it should be fine, because they're going to put it on their floor in May and June and sell it, and the people who are going to use it are probably going to use it this summer. So having an expiry or best before November, although it's short, might be 6 or 8 months, and tough for the brand because they can't sell to the regular retailers. And we might be able to find that solution and move such a big volume based on a situation where they're sitting on too much and they have to move it because there's a date. And once the date hits, then they're going to pay to dispose of it, versus getting paid, to remove it. So.
Can this be, out of curiosity, so when I was listening to you, can it be not necessarily liquidation, but let's say a product? The product is proven, but that's a new company offering this product or enter into the market. Would your service be helpful for them to enter the market in a way that offering the product in large volumes?
Yes and no. Like, it is, like, for us, we're not as much like the mainstream that's going to say, get your new product that's hitting the market into Target, Walmart, Costco. So it's not as much of that. It's more of, we have a situation of a large volume, or we overproduced, or we want to sell this in a different market, because we have minimum orders and we're sitting on it. So it's more of a situation, because we're not typically going to say, oh, look at the, and be able to help on, like, say, a wholesale level. For us, it's more, we need to get rid of this because of it's last year's model. We have the new, shirt coming out, or we have odd sizes, or it's taking up warehouse space. So it's, typically, it is more of a reason. Sometimes it could be, bankruptcies where, companies are going bankrupt, and a bank will hire a trustee to help liquidate the assets, and they'll call us to say, come in and purchase. But quite often also, we're seeing it like from an angle of like industries based on the economy that are struggling. So for you, I'm sure it's very similar, but in terms of building here in Canada, people aren't breaking ground like they used to. Like, it's something where the amount that was being built in downtown and all over, in Canada in general, but especially Toronto, was nonstop. Housing sales were through the roof, and people were renovating nonstop. So because the housing market's being affected, people aren't buying homes. So typically they're not doing a renovation, because maybe you do a renovation when you buy a home versus, out of the blue, or at least most of the time.
True, yes.
And buildings aren't being built. So because of it, what's happening with flooring companies, lighting companies, window companies, furniture companies, like
Mm-hmm,
pe-
mm-hmm.
I think the industry could be struggling, and it's because the product has no use at the moment. If I said,
Mm,
Kevin, I have an incredible deal on tiles and they're 90% off, you'd be like, yeah, great deal, Alex, but I'm not redoing my kitchen.
yeah,
So even if they were free, they're not of interest to me and they take up space. Then I got to pay 6 times more just to have them uninstalled and installed and everything. So
yeah.
because of that, you're seeing a lot of items that are coming on the market now,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
or because of tariffs, or because of even post
mm-hmm,
COVID. And it's a
mm-hmm.
struggle. It's really tough where you used to be able to find a customer or a competitor would come in and buy it, but the competitor doesn't have money. They don't have cash flow. They don't have
Same
warehouse
situation.
space
Yeah.
either. So they
Mm,
can't even come in and buy it because everyone's kind of dealing with that same problem.
true. True.
Then there's a bankruptcy and a liquidation, and then that pushes the market even lower because a bunch of stuff goes in at 5 or 10 cents on the dollar. So yeah, so it's just like a constant, yeah,
Got it.
where it seems to be getting worse.
And how is the industry in general? When I say industry, like, are there any companies or organizations doing what you are doing similarly or differently? How would you see the market in general?
For sure, yeah, yeah. So there are similar companies to us. There are day to day. Like you don't feel as much. I don't feel like I have competitors. Like I know a lot of people in the industry. We partner with a lot. Some of the biggest liquidation companies in America. We're constantly working with, partnering with on deals in America, deals in Canada. So there are other people in it. Some people specialize. They might say they specialize in equipment and machinery, or
Okay.
specialize in certain aspects of the industry, or maybe they do more appraisals versus
Hmm.
liquidation, or so there are others, but day to day, I just feel like so much of it is about that relationship. If we go to a company and we sell their inventory into the right channels and we pay them up front and we pick it up from their warehouse and we do exactly what they say they're going to do, it's hard to
Hmm.
believe they're not going to want to come to us in 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, like if they ever have a situation again. And that goes for the same with, say, a trustee or
Hmm.
a third party warehouse that might be stuck with some assets that they need to move, and they want to get as much as they can in the fastest amount of time and clear the space. They know that, and and hopefully they want to be able to, calling us based
Hmm.
on working with us in the past.
Okay. Well, one of the popular subjects in American business podcast is AI. How do you see the impact of AI on business nowadays in general?
It's massive. It's a whole. I mean, we haven't even seen it at all, like to begin, and it's remarkable at this stage what it's capable of. And at my company, we're trying to use it more and more every day. But I think if you're not trying to use it in some capacity, you're going to fall far far behind. But I think you really need to incorporate it in many aspects, because I don't want to start saying, oh, it's going to replace all these jobs or these industries, because to some degree, you still need a human aspect, but it's going to replace a lot of the work done. It's going to replace, proofreading or finding out information. Like it's too easy. Any information I want to find, you could find it in even if I don't know about it, I could find it and ask. And yeah, there's not, a guarantee that it's always right, but I just think the ability to feed it information and get, information from that. So maybe you could feed it, say, your sales, and ask why
Hmm.
your sales are down this month, and it will go product by product, month by month, day by day. It could be something where it could be as simple as just proofreading your emails to make them sound more professional, or putting things in, like there's implementing things, on your website. So for me, it's something that I'm trying to incorporate more and more, and we are on my team. But I think that everyone should be, yeah, definitely incorporated into their businesses.
Based on your experience and observation, what are the best marketing practices for the highest ROI nowadays?
Yeah, it's a really, really great question. So yeah, I mean, obviously, depending on industry, depending on if it's a product based or service based, but if you're selling, you have to be on where people are, and it's always been that way. And that obviously goes right to social media, and that goes to TikTok, and that goes to Instagram, and that's where it is, like that in terms of, whatnot. There's other sites where people can sell product from exactly where they are. It's too easy, but that's where people are going. And 20 years ago, if you wanted to buy a car, you would go to facebook.com/the car name. Like, people weren't even going to the website once Facebook came out, and it's the reality of, like, if, and that's why TikTok and TikTok Shop and a lot of these places, it's like, it doesn't mean that you're going to primarily, if, like, you're not, selling like an all-star on there, you're not going to be successful. It's not about that. It's about trying to diversify and being able to get out to different markets, but also to maximize in terms of marketing in general. Sometimes less is more. I was talking about this today, and an example of bankruptcy we did a few years ago. It was a pretty big company here in Canada. We were liquidating about $10 million of inventory. At one point, they had 25 or 30 stores, and we were about to do this bankruptcy liquidation sale. We had a budget that we were able to use in terms of getting out there and advertising, and the old ownership was involved, and everyone wanted to go all in. And they're like, let's spend, and the first week, and we need to, let's spend, a huge amount on ads and radio ads and Facebook and everything. And I said, guys, take a step back. This brand, it has so much history. You have such an incredible story. You don't need to spend the money. All we need to do is we'll write a great press release, and we'll get the word out, and it'll be picked up. And that's exactly what we did. 30 years of history, and every single news outlet in Canada picked it up. And we got hundreds of thousands of dollars of free advertising based on taking a step back and saying, it's not always the old way, or it's not always the obvious way of, let's do more ads and let's put more dollars. It's like, how do we touch people? How do we tell them about, this is our fun, the history, but this is your last chance to come get a great deal, by the way. And we had more traffic in the stores than they had at any Black Friday, any sale, Christmas, for their history, based on getting the word out without even spending. Our spend was the cost of publishing a press release, so I think that it's something where, like, that's a great example of something where you're, less is sometimes more, and it's not always about, and not to say you don't have to spend. I'm not saying, you wouldn't want to spend on week 2 or spend on week 3 of the sale, but if you have dollars, you don't always need to spend them all, but you don't need to necessarily spend them at first. Maybe the traffic's going to now die down a bit because that, the initial hype is done. Let's spend now. Let's tell people about it again. Let's say, oh, we've already closed X amount of stores. There's this many left. Come get your final deal. And then we could, make that plan. So, making that plan ahead of time and taking a step back and trying to execute has really helped us versus trying to rush and do too much as well.
How would you define leadership, and what are the great leadership qualities a good leader must have?
Yeah. So for defining leadership, I think that at first, when I started the company, I thought leadership was knowing all the answers. I really was, in terms of, as I grew my team, and I thought, oh, I should, and really it's not. It's relying on your team for some answers, like the areas that they specialize in, but ultimately working together to figure out what the right answer is, or pivoting, or making, the changes necessary to work together to get things done. Because like anything, like any good team in a business, any good sports team, you're not doing this alone. It's everyone kind of working together. And so for me, that was always, crucial, and really, appreciating opinions around me, and letting, my team's opinion be heard. But I think for me, the leadership, like, style that has really, helped me, I think, limit having, no turnover, and really having, a strong team, is, I think, that human aspect. We are all in it together. We're all working. We're spending more time, a lot of the time, with each other than we are our families. And you're spending so much time day to day, over the years. And everyone goes through so many things in their life, good and bad. And I think making sure to be there for everyone in every aspect, in the good and the bad, is crucial. You know, throughout, everyone on my team has gone through, anything from marriage and babies, to death and horrible things and accidents and incredible things that they should be so proud of. And it's just making sure you are there. That, oh, incredible, you just had a baby, you definitely need some time off. Oh wow, like, you're getting married, or you're going, when's your honeymoon, you got to make sure to do that. Or, like, uh, oh my god, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss, like, you should definitely take some time with your family. It's being there for people so that they could be comfortable in their life. So it's not like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to work under these conditions, or I can't think about it. Like, I'm dealing with this thing with my family. And like, that's what's important. Like, we'd all rather be, to some degree, like on a beach. Like, I love work, and I, but I also love, playing with my kids and going away. Right. So it's like, we're all in this and we're working together. And it's just like, you need to make sure that everyone feels good and you're kind of there to support them with the important things, and anything day to day. It could be a haircut, it could be a dentist appointment. It's like, whatever you need, just tell me, just let me know. So it's having that environment where people feel comfortable to talk to me about things, but also knowing that I'll be there for them. I feel like they work so much harder and want to work with me and for me, because I genuinely care about them, and I look at them as family. I really, look at my whole team as family of mine. So
Have you had any role models, any mentors who help you shape your career journey over the years?
yeah, I mean, another really great question. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've had several over the years. My late grandfather was an entrepreneur from a young age. He started when he was a teenager, his own business. Back then, not going to school, and he was always growing up. He was just an entrepreneur. He's well respected. He was someone I just always looked up to. So, he really shaped, that entrepreneurial, for me, in terms of, but there's a lot of people in my industry that I've met over the years, people that are, say, much older or have since passed, and that I really developed some great relationships with, that I've taken a lot in from, like, people I've partnered with, people that I've been able to just be close with. And I think it's crucial. I think it's really important, and that, and that's why your podcast is so incredible, because of the
Thank you.
ability to be able to just sit back and learn, and seeing, episodes, and being able to learn from other entrepreneurs and hear their stories and hear their, I can go on, for days, but I'm just like, hear the good, but also the bad and the mistakes, to be, better prepared, and, and learn from different challenges, because, to some degree, we're definitely like all in it together. But that's where you learn. You learn from people who have done it. You learn from people who have kind of, been in it. And yeah.
This is great. Well, key career lesson. If there is one key career lesson that you learned the hard way, what would it be that you can share with us?
Oh wow, learn the hard way. Yeah, career. I mean, it's tough. Like, it's hard to trust, everyone. You want to, and you want to be able to build that relationship. There was one time where I built a great relationship with, what I thought would be a reputable brand name and company, and I went out to see them and met with their family, and everything what I thought was good. We made a purchase. This was in 2013, and I was maybe 3-4 years into my company. I was pretty new, and I made what was a pretty big purchase for me, and I thought I was getting something, and I didn't get what I had agreed to, and it changed forever the way that I operated. Not that I didn't trust anyone, because my whole business model is built on trust, but it lit a fire under me, and it was the best probably thing that ever happened to me. At the moment, it was the worst. It was catastrophic. I was a young business. I didn't, who knew? I could have folded it in and been like, this is it for me. But I think that lit a fire under me to figure out how to figure this solution out. But just in general, in terms of work ethic, in terms of, and I think in general, like those challenges, like everyone goes through negative. It could be a negative deal. It could be a negative employee situation. It could be a negative, company that you work for where it didn't work out. So, for me, it was a negative experience with someone, but I think because of it, I learned to make sure to like build the right relationships. I'm working with big brand name manufacturers and big brand name retailers and credible companies that I'm not worried about day to day of not getting what I paid for, because if I don't, they'll say sorry and give me a refund, or because the shipment was wrong or something, right? Like, so it's something where you're not worried about that when you have the right relationships. And at first I didn't. I was younger, I was building, I didn't know, and every day was really truly a new adventure. Like now at least we have structure in terms of certain deals and opportunities and things we're working on.
We have a little tradition in the American Business Podcast. I have a question for you coming from our previous guest, and I'll ask you to leave me a question for my coming guest. And the question from our previous guest is, how do you see the future of AI? Will it take over business with super intelligence in the future, or not yet? Or never?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's... I'm sure it's on a lot of people's mind, and a lot of industries' minds. Will it take over? I don't know that it's going to completely take over, but can it to a large effect in terms of what we're seeing and in terms of self-driving cars nowadays, in terms of everyone's using AI. Lawyers are using AI. They all have their own proprietary software per firm. And they're not sending an email or looking at a document that's not going through AI. And it's making them all more efficient. And that's just one example, every single industry. So I do see it replacing some jobs because it's easy. Because if I go to a website now and I said, make a great promotional video, of me and Kevin doing this, I can have something done in potentially minutes from AI that you might have had to hire someone that could have taken weeks, that would have cost you 6 times more. So to some degree, there are going to be a lot of things that people might not have as much workload because things are easier to do. I used to have certain things that I would get my employees and say, can you read this over for me? Now I let AI read it over, right? Like kind of thing. So I think it's just something where I don't believe it's going to completely take over, to say that like, you're not going to need an accountant anymore, but you might not need as many people involved other than, one main person and have AI doing a lot of, the basic work.
What a change, right? It's going to be a changing world. That's for sure with the AI. Yeah. That's going to be really revolutionary. That's for sure. Okay, well, what is your question for the next guest?
What's my question? So my question for the next guest is, based on your career, based on your experience, and and everything you've been through, what is one piece of advice that you would give a young entrepreneur?
Okay, this is a beautiful question. I'll make sure to ask in the next episode. Thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, well, in this part of the episode, in the American Business Podcast, do you have any question that you would like to ask me?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed, first of all, with the podcast in general.
Thank you.
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
I guess the question is like, tell me about like what you've been, like in terms of some of the maybe just a challenge and some of the good you're seeing in terms of how overwhelming it is when you continue to grow, you get new opportunities, you have people watching all around the world. It's not just in America. You have people literally in the countries that you're worldwide at this point.
Yes.
And tell me just a little bit, I would love to hear, like, because it's very exciting and it's only going up from here.
Yes, absolutely. And we are, we are 13 months old as a podcast. So actually, we are pretty young. We just celebrated our first anniversary earlier this month. And I appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you for your support. It's an honor to have you here. And yes, I mean for us, the growth has been really motivational, and I'm truly I'm grateful for the support coming from the business community in general. The moment that we started it, we like it to be educational, informative, non-political, and we've been keeping that model. And it looks like business community in general, they really appreciate the educational content that we are creating, and our style always friendly, professional, and insightful. So that helps. The challenge is always keeping this consistency, right? So we have to always keep it in mind. Hey, whoever we are interviewing, whatever subject we're gonna be talking about, make sure that is informative, that is educational, and we create value by creating these educational content. So always keep it in mind, and the discipline. So every single week we always deliver content, at least one. Nowadays on average 3 to 5 different episodes coming up. So we have massive massive lineup in terms of guests coming up this year. We are pretty much set for this year.
Good for
Pretty much
you.
set.
Wow.
Yes.
Honestly, that
So
says so much about, what you built, how people want to be a part of it. And,
yes.
but just how, for me, like for us, we're getting, with what's happening in the economy and that we've been around, we're getting a ton of interviews and podcasts and
Mhm.
being on your podcast and just the questions. Like, I think there's such great questions, and they're very much, about the journey. They're very much about business. Like, like I love how it's very similar for everyone, because you get to learn, and it's. I think it's really informative, and
Yes, appreciate it. And
proud
we
of what
have
you built, and I believe it's just
appreciate it.
the beginning.
It is just the beginning.
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. So in the beginning we started as a podcast, and then it evolved into a podcast network. Now we have 20 different segments in the American Business Podcast. So we are a podcast network, and we also started our podcasting as a service for businesses. So businesses can also start their podcast within our network. That is also a service that we start to offer. So from podcast to being podcast network, now we are being media platform plus business platform. That's where we are going right now. I can see the evolution. So this is very exciting. And just like you said, this is just the beginning. We are just 13 months old at the end of the day, and there is more to do. And I can see this is a great timing. I really appreciate our guests. I appreciate you and our guests, that you come in, you share in the content, and you bring a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And insights. I mean, these we've been talking here, these are natural for you, right? You talk about these, you think about these, your business. Like earlier we talked about, this is part of you now. This is very natural, right, for you to talk about your business. But not for us. For us, it's new. So that's why I asked those questions to learn from you. And the knowledge that you bring, the insights are pretty exciting and very informative. So we just learned like many different things about liquidation industry in just 30 minutes, 35 minutes, which is great. So and that is the cool part of this, and that is the whole mission for us, this creating these education content. So this is has been a great journey so far, and there is more to come, of course.
Perfect. Yeah, looking forward.
Appreciate it. What is your career advice for the next generation professionals?
So I think that for the next generation, for professionals, there's so much, they have a lot more time than they think, right? It's really, not as much of a rush, but you truly have to do something you're passionate about. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's very, very difficult for you to be able to have success and be able to be happy day to day, be able to, like your career and what you do. Most people are doing this for most of their life, for a good portion of their day. When they're not sleeping, if you're not passionate about it, it's very hard to grow. And for me, I would say that by being passionate about it and enjoying what I do, it makes it easy to work. So even if I am away or whatever I'm doing, it doesn't matter if I'm at nighttime or on the weekend. It's like, for me, it's easy. If I have work to do, I'll just go do it because I have it to do. It's not as much of a hassle. And I think passion is crucial, and you have a lot more time than you think. If you're in your low 20s or your mid 20s or your low 30s, it's not catastrophic that you don't have it all figured out and you don't have a big career or a big house or the car. No. A lot of people, it happens in a short period of time. Once you do figure it out, like for me, it took 6 or 7 years until I was like, I was just chugging along. Like I wasn't, losing, but I wasn't really, but then I established some incredible relationships and we found ways to get more consistency. And then we did what we said we were going to do. And we continue to do that. And it snowballed, and it happens, but it happens in a short period of time. And you got to learn from it. So, obviously that was a bit of a long-winded, but I think it's just, making sure that you're doing something that you enjoy doing. And yeah.
These are great insights. Yes, truly appreciate it. For those who like to be in touch with you, learn more about your organization, what is the best way that they can get in touch with you, learn about your company?
Yeah, of course. You could check out our website. So it's adhennick.com. So adhennick.com. You can email me at alex@adhennick.com. Feel free to give us a call. And I think it's something where, like, for us, even if you have questions, like not necessarily like in terms of, what you're liquidating or if you're liquidating, but sometimes people want to know. They want to have an idea of what is the process? What is my product worth? How can you avoid selling it, to these companies so we can protect our brand? So I think it's more of, we want to be a solution and a problem solver. So quite often people are, really reaching out and we're building that relationship with them to, just be able to give them the right advice, whether that is, working with us or if it's working elsewhere or, donating it to a charity or, selling it to a competitor. We're always going to kind of give you that right advice for what we think is best.
Yes, and maybe companies should meet you before they even need you. That's what I was thinking when I was listening to you. It'll make even more sense to build the relationship, just meet and see what can be in the future. Nobody knows, but hey, start a conversation, start building a relationship. It'll be even more
you
sense.
said it. It's crucial, and that relationship, like for me, I think is that success has been built on putting in the work. I'll go to to a trade show. I just flew to New York 2 weeks ago to go to a trade show for the day. And I'll hand out 80 business cards and go meet 80 different companies with the hopes of doing business with 5 of them, because now I'm doing business with 5 more companies or something. So it's about going to build that relationship to say, even if you don't need me now, whenever you do, I'm always here.
Yes.
Just give me a call and I'm happy to kind of assist or just give you that right advice or purchase or whatever it is, so that they know, because when it comes up, typically they want to move quickly.
Yes. I love your style. I love the way that you are approaching. This is really exemplary. And I'm glad you joined the American Business Podcast today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you
for your insights. Of course, pleasure is all mine. And thank you for sharing your professional wisdom with us today in the American Business Podcast.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And looking forward to staying in touch. And I wish you a great day and great weekend.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. And to our audience, our listeners, our viewers, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening in the American Business Podcast. We'll be right back after a short break. Thank you.